Hey everyone, welcome back to Titans Talk, the series dedicated to DC Universe's Titans on their streaming platform. So episode 2, titled Hawk and Dove, debuted on Friday, and I finally got the chance to see it, and I have to tell you, it did way better, in my opinion, than the first episode, and it definitely has me on board for Titans going forward. So the episode mainly focuses on Robin and Raven as they sort of try and regroup and try and figure out exactly what Raven is, as she did just kill a guy in the previous episode. So they sort of try and go a little bit on the run, regroup, and they actually end up getting the help from Hank Hall and Dawn Granger, who Robin used to run with back in the day, even when he was still with Batman. Now Hank Hall and Dawn Granger are better known as Hawk and Dove, but they're respectively played by Alan Ritchson, who actually played Raphael in the Michael Bay-produced Ninja Turtles films, as well as Minka Kelly, who I best know from the Friday Night Lights TV series from a couple years ago. But overall, their sort of relationship is a little bit complicated, but the way they sort of explore it without really going too much into detail, I really like this episode, and I like the relationship that Robin used to have with them. It's very complicated, but the reason that he's getting back with them and sort of needs their help kind of makes sense, and the way that it sort of ties together, I just really liked it a lot, and it was much better than the previous episode, trying to interconnect 4 different storylines kind of and put it all into one. I just really hope that they can sort of do that moving forward with the rest of the Titans as well. Also in this episode, we get introduced to what's called the nuclear family, which is basically kind of like a nuclear family. If you don't know what that is, basically like a 50s type of family back when like nuclear bombs and things were like a big thing. So they're called the nuclear family. They are deeply rooted in the DC comics, especially I think with the Outsiders, which I believe Batman was a part of, if I'm not wrong. And they're just sort of, there were androids, I believe, in the comics, but in this one, they just seem like normal people who take this sort of drug and essentially go like purging, or they're some type of assassins. I'm not really entirely sure what they are in this series, but they're definitely interesting. I just don't know if I'm really wanting to see a lot more of them. Maybe in the next episode, based on this events that happened in this episode, see what exactly whether they try and take it. But I don't feel like this family is something that should be staying around for all season or really coming back at all for the most part. So hopefully they'll make their little run and then just sort of be done with it. Now, something interesting that episode 2, Hawk and Dove, did is that it actually completely excluded Starfire and Beast Boy from any storyline whatsoever. At least in the first episode, Starfire got a little bit of a storyline. Beast Boy got that little nugget at the end, but in episode 2, they are non-existent. They are essentially replaced by Hawk and Dove for the most part. This really is a Hawk and Dove story with Robin and Raven sort of interacting with them as well, which I think is interesting because we haven't really developed the Titans themselves yet. But I really liked how they tied it all together and sort of brought their storylines together, not only with Robin's past with Hawk and Dove, but also giving Raven sort of a positive influence with Dove, as she's been having a really tough time and sort of having interactions with people because of her powers and her abilities. So I think that was a good thing for her. But the way they sort of interconnect them, they all sort of need each other for different aspects. Hawk and Dove sort of need Robin to help with this job that they're doing. Robin sort of needs their help with helping with figuring out what Raven is and sort of like raising her in a way. So it's all kind of interwoven. And I really hope that they can do that in the future with the bringing in Starfire and Beast Boy, that they all sort of need each other, or there's some sort of interconnection, because Beast Boy and Starfire feel so disconnected from the storyline right now that I'm not sure how they're going to integrate them. And I feel like if they're able to integrate them at least a fraction of what they were able to do in this episode, it's going to be way better of a series. But then again, when I go back and think about it now, the way that they sort of excluded Starfire and Beast Boy is really interesting, because why would you sort of tease them and make them the main characters when Hawk and Dove clearly have a better connected story? So I hope that they're able to bring Starfire and Beast Boy together with Robin and Raven, to make sense and actually make you want to see it the same way, like I said, that Hawk and Dove sort of incorporate with it. Because they have that bond and sort of history together that makes sense with Robin and Raven. But Beast Boy and Starfire feel so disconnected, it kind of makes me worry a little bit. But I'm really holding out hope, and I think based on the IMDb page, Hawk and Dove are going to be in some capacity part of the rest of the season. I don't know if they're technically going to be part of the Titans team or main characters for that matter, but I really like their interaction with Robin and Raven, so I really hope that they're able to continue that throughout the rest of the season and progress their story as well as with the rest of the Titans. Now, in terms of the acting, I think everybody did a pretty great job still here. I think Brandon Thwaite's Robin, still really good. I loved him kicking ass once again in this episode. I really liked how he has that sort of brutal fighting style right now. And even like when he's talking to Dove in the episode, he's like, I've changed. And then like he shows up to help them and kicks some ass. And then like she's like, wow, you really have changed. Like he wasn't like that before. So knowing that Robin used to be a little bit more, I don't want to say gentle, but not nearly as aggressive in his fighting style previously, it makes it kind of interesting to know that he's changed. There's things that are happening with him. He's not just sort of the boy wonder that everybody knows him to be, like that squeaky clean guy. He's seriously going through some stuff. So I think that that's a great aspect of the story. And then in terms of Tegan Croft's Raven, she also does a good job. I'm not going to take anything away from her. I really just hope that they stop making her be sort of that really scared little girl who's scared to go outside, scared to talk to anyone because of her powers. I hope that at some point she learns to embrace them or sort of work with them and become that Raven that we all know and love, sort of like that dry, sassy, sort of not really giving a care about anyone sort of style that we all know and love. So I hope that they can get there eventually. I hope it's sooner than later, but I can just sort of, I don't want to see her be like so scared all the time, every episode, every season. And I think that's why this episode was so great, because her interaction with Minka Kelly's Dove, she was able to have that positive influence, talk about Game of Thrones, and sort of have some semblance of a normal or at least a happy life, even for just a fraction of a second. And I think that was good for her character. So I just hope that eventually we get to the Raven that we know and love, or at least some variation of that, because that's really what we all want to see for Raven. We don't know her as that scared little girl, but hopefully we'll get there. Now, in terms of Minka Kelly's Dove, again, great performance. I think she does a great job. Same thing with Alan Richardson's Hawk. I feel like they both really portrayed their relationship very well. I didn't feel like it was very unbelievable. Again, that drama between sort of Robin, Dove, and Hawk sort of escalated a little bit at a moment, and Raven had to sort of get involved type of thing. It felt very real, in my opinion. I mean, obviously it's fake, but it felt like this could be an actual viable relationship if you take away like the superheroes and stuff. It seemed like they all had real drama and real problems, which I think was really great. It actually felt like a real world building sort of thing. And speaking of world building, since we're going to go on to the next thing, this episode does a ton of world building. Well, I shouldn't say a ton, but it does a decent amount of world building that the first episode just completely disregarded. And so one of the great things that they did, number one, was involving Alfred Pennyworth, obviously Batman's butler and Robin's sort of, I guess, mentor in a way, his life support, if anything. He actually gives him a call. He takes a phone out during the episode. We see a couple of names, which again, I think I saw Lucius Fox scroll by. I think there's a Marvel girl, I don't remember her name, Donna Gray or something like that, named there. But I think most are probably like writers or producers or something. A lot of TV shows like to do that stuff. But as he was scrolling through his phone, I did think I saw a blur of a Lucius Fox. He ends up calling Alfred Pennyworth, but he pauses for a moment to possibly call Bruce Wayne, which I thought was great. But he decided to call Alfred because I feel like he trusts him the most at this point. And I think Alfred will be that bridge that brings Dick and Bruce back together, or not necessarily back together, but possibly sort of try and have some semblance of a relationship again, because he does have that rocky point with Bruce. And I think that eventually he takes a long time for him to process and get through that. And Alfred's going to be the bridge for that. But he gets his help in getting some money and some other stuff. He actually calls him twice. We don't hear his voice, I don't think, too much. So we obviously don't really know who plays him or anything like that. But I think it's great world building that they're sort of building it out and letting you know that these things do exist, even if it's like Lucius Fox, Alfred Pennyworth, people that we know exist, but at least we know that they're interacting with each other. And speaking of world building also, and knowing that they're out there, Minka Kelly's Dove actually is wearing a Superman t-shirt at one point during the show. So we know that Superman exists. In what capacity, we do not know. We don't know if he's necessarily out there like fighting crime with Batman type of situation, or anything like that. But at least we know he exists in this world of Titans. Not that we ever expected like they're going to exclude Superman completely and disregard his existence. I never thought that. But at least we know he's out there, either as a person, as a comic, as a TV show, whatever the case may be. That idea of that person is out there in the world. And I think that's enough world building for me for now. I'm sure they'll do some more, but I just hope that they continue to build that world instead of sort of just keeping that sort of very small story, very disjointed story like the first episode did. But this episode, because of that world building and because of that storyline that they sort of integrated very well with the characters, it was definitely a much better episode than the first one. Now, in terms of negatives that I have for the episode of Hawk and Dove, I really don't have any at all. I like the episode a lot. I think the two main things that I'm taking away that I didn't like are probably going to be that Raven, I just hope that she gets that badass attitude at some point, and the nuclear family, I wasn't super big into that. I felt like that was the biggest disconnection in the episode. But other than that, I was really enjoyed the majority of it. It was probably the best episode, obviously, so far. There's only been 2, but this one definitely blew the first one out of the water. The first one had potential to have go in the right areas, but the second one actually made me jump on board with the show, which I think is important. Now, again, because Starfire and Beast Boy weren't there, I have a little bit of concern there, and hopefully they can get the same sort of love and attention, or at least a fraction of that Hawk and Dove got in their interaction with Robin and Raven, and the storylines interconnecting, things like that. That's all I can hope for the future. But overall, for the episode, I actually really liked it a lot. And for that reason, the overall grade that I'm going to give episode 2 of Titans, called Hawk and Dove, the grade that I'll give that is an A. To be honest with you guys, I was pretty shook by the episode, even with the ending. I mean, there was some things that I was really just not expecting throughout this episode, and even to liking it to the degree that I actually did. I just hope that you guys, if you haven't been able to see it, that you liked it as much as I did, and it sort of restored your faith in the show and wanting to get on board with it, same as it did for me. But if you have been able to see it, make sure you let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you think. Did it restore your faith? Are you on board? Are you still sort of rocky about it? What are your concerns about the series going forward? Let me know your thoughts below. I would love to hear them and interact with you guys about that. But other than that, that's all I have for now for this episode of Titans Talk, for episode 2, Hawk and Dove. I will definitely be back next week for episode 3, which I don't know the title of yet to tease it. But I'll be back for that one for Titans Talk episode 3. But other than that, that's all I have for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.